Hi,
Hey,
good morning, everybody. This is Marci Mowry with the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation,
and
and
I'm
I'm
Pam
here with.
Metzger. Pam Metzger, how you doing?
We're coming to you actually from Western Pennsylvania. We were here last night for the unveiling of a new beer in partnership with Stick City Brewing and Public Land Store. Let's enjoy together. And it was a fun event at the Public Land Store. So, if Pam looks like she's in a stairwell, it's because she is. We're having some echoing issues here. So thank you for joining us today. We're super excited. Today is Extra Give. It's the largest single day of giving in the world. Um, and we're happy to be able to be a part of that. It's sponsored by the Lancaster County Community Foundation. And we have got a really exciting day planned. You may have been on early to our Facebook page and saw that we shared a morning rush hour playlist with you. This playlist is songs that were suggested by staff and board that inspire them either to explore the outdoors or to get out and get moving. So that is up available on our Facebook page, and I believe that's the only spot, Pam, or we put it in our Take Five.
I did not share it in Take Five this morning. I didn't want to give any sneak previews to anyone.
Okay,
So,
well, visit our Facebook page, and if you're not on Facebook, let us know, and we'll definitely share it next week. But it's a pretty cool playlist. We're doing the coffee break right now, and we have a special guest that'll be joining us a little bit later, Steve Wacker, who's the district forester for the William Penn Forest District. And we're going to be talking about spotted lanternfly. Some of you may have seen the spotted lanternfly when you're traveling this year, or maybe you saw it in your own backyard, or maybe you saw it as a Halloween costume because we saw some of those in our neighborhood. But he'll be joining us at 10:30 to talk about the spotted lanternfly.
that this it's such a beautiful bug, and so horribly destructive. This, I know Steve will get into a whole lot more when he's on, but I have to tell you, I've only seen one. And we were in Hagerstown, Maryland, and I was putting gas in the car, and I looked down, and the thing was on my shoulder. And I completely freaked out because I don't like to kill things, but B, I know that I have to kill this thing. So I wiped it off my shoulder and I started stomping on it like an out of control crazy woman screaming, no, no, no. And I just know that everybody in the gas station was freaking out about what in the world it might have been. But thankfully it was
What is
down in
this?
Maryland and I never saw those people again. So
We had it
one
pretty bad
gone
at our
forever.
house.
Yeah.
We have two trees that they seem to like. One was a quaking aspen, which is one of my favorite trees, and it's just provides beautiful, gentle shade in our yard. And the other one was a silver maple. And we
Oh,
actually, I'm going to try to share a picture. I don't know if this is going to work, but um, we, let's see. I don't know. It may not work. Oh, here it is. Let's see if I can share this. We've developed an ingenious way to get them out of the tree. I don't know if you can see this picture. Is it showing up, Pam?
yeah. Yep, I can see
So
it.
this is a shop vac with a PVC pipe on it, and we would suck the spotted lanternflies up into the PVC into the shop vac. We got hundreds of them, and it had this very satisfying clunk as they would go up into the shop vac. So that was one way that we found to control them.
You don't scream no, no, no when you're doing it.
No, I actually was kind of like, oh, let's. I got pretty proficient at it because at first there was my husband has some pictures of me trying to vacuum them, and they were jumping and they were landing on me, and then I was
Oh.
shouting, no, no, no. But yeah. So also happening today at 12 o'clock, we have live over the lunch hour. Our guest blogger, Christian Alexanderson, you may have seen some of his blog posts. Christian ran a mile at every state park. And he's going to be there talking, joining us and Jen Dunlap from our staff, talking about his personal journey and some of the advice that he has if you're looking to embark on an effort to visit all 121 state parks. And yes, he even ran on Allegheny Island. From 2 to 3 is the Sugar Rush. We'll have some s'mores recipes for you. From 4 to 5 is Happy Hour, and we'll be joined by our friends at New Trail Brewing. They'll be talking about pairing beers with food and even your Thanksgiving dinner. And if you've been following us for a while, you know that New Trails has been featuring a state park beer. They have a whole state park series. The current beer out is a cherry chocolate milk stout, and a portion of the proceeds will support Cherry Springs State Park and the Dark Sky Fund there. And then I'm just going to double check one more time. And then we have a rush hour from 5 to 6. And we'll be premiering our new Health and the Outdoors videos. From 7 to 8, we'll be premiering our Environmental Rights Amendment Song Contest winners. And then from 9 to 10 is the Power Hour. So lots of fun things planned today.
So, I don't know if you noticed on the little screen that I put up before we went exactly live, we're going to pull a prize of this is our coffee break. So we're going to pull a prize of I don't remember the brand name, coffee press donated by our friends at REI. So if you donate during this hour, pull a name and see who wins that coffee press. And I think you can take camping, Marci. I'm not familiar with coffee presses.
We use this all the time. It's an AeroPress. This is an AeroPress Go, which means all the components break down into a tiny little package, and it creates single serve coffee. So my husband uses one every day. He feels it makes the best coffee. So simple to use, compact, easy to carry. So you can always have that special cup of Joe anytime. I'm a tea drinker, and I just realized that my tea is on the other side of the room. So I'm going to kind of slide over here for a second and grab that.
There, I put the picture back up again in case you missed the screensaver right before we logged on. So that looks like a demonstration of the press is about to happen there with somebody with some coffee. So
very
cool.
It is very cool. We do thank our friends at REI for that. I wanted to show another picture. Let me see if I can bring that up. Let me get rid of some of these other ones as I show them, because we wanted to talk about some of the new things that were happening. And one of our newest items that we have is at Goldsboro State Park, they had an ADA fishing pier that was starting to deteriorate. And with your support and some funds from the Fish Foundation, we were able to work with the park staff, and the Pennsylvania Outdoor Corps rehabilitated the fishing pier. So it looks awesome. And if you can see it here on the screen, we're continuing that project and going to be doing some ADA renovations on a picnic pavilion very close to this fishing pier. So it could be a full ADA accessible area of the park at Goldsboro State Park. There's another one underway at Toby Hanna State Park. It was supported by donations and a grant from the Luzerne Foundation. So we're hoping to have that one ready for the spring's fishing season. So, but didn't the staff in the POC do a beautiful job on that structure?
That's beautiful. Quite a scene.
Yeah.
So the dollars that come to PPF do a whole lot of really terrific things out there across the system. It helps us. It helps us help you. Fishermen, cyclists, hikers, bird watchers, and squashers of spotter and lanternfly.
Well, and speaking of hikers, we're waiting to see where we are. We've been working with Gallitzin State Forest to put in a new pedestrian bridge to make access to a trail a little bit easier for those hiking in that forest district. So it was a long time coming. We've been working with them for several years, but things got caught up in the permitting process because we were doing a stream crossing. But yeah, some other things. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. So please put them in the chat box. Questions that you might have about our state parks and state forest. Questions that you might have about the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation. Questions you might have about hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking. The thing about PPFF is we are outdoors people ourselves, so we are engaging in these things. I'm based in the Camp Hill office. Pam is based in our Western Pennsylvania office, which is in Confluence. She's right on the Great Allegheny Passage, so she's easily gets on that particular trail and bikes.
sometimes with my husband, Bill, who I don't know if anybody out there is aware of it, but Bill just finished up the second edition of his book, The Great Allegheny Passage Companion, about the trail from Cumberland to Pittsburgh. So we're going to add that to our prizes later on today, pull a copy, an autographed copy of the book to give away to a donor during a particular hour of the Extra Give. So stay tuned and it might be you.
Well, Pam, let's talk a little bit about Bill, because he rides the Great Allegheny Passage, but he does it in a little bit of a different manner. Can you share a little bit about Bill's cycle that he uses?
He does. He rides a hand cycle. He has multiple sclerosis, and now he uses a wheelchair most exclusively, but he rides a hand cycle. And it's a 3-wheel trike, as you might imagine, that's powered by his arms. And if I babble here for a minute or two, maybe I might be able to find a picture of him on his bike. Maybe not necessarily on the passage, but I'll see what I can find pretty quickly. But yeah, he's been riding I think we might be in our 16th year of that. And he's got over 30,000 miles on the thing. So having the passage right outside the door is a really terrific thing. And of course, I can't find a picture. You never can find a picture when you want. Oh, there's a good one. This was not a particularly great day that I'm going to show you, but speaking of our good friends at REI out at Shawnee a couple of years ago, I guess they do the Ride Bedford County ride every year. And so we went out to take part in that a few years ago, and we didn't get very far. It unfortunately was a lot hillier than we were expecting, and it wasn't the well.
And several years ago, we purchased some of these similar bikes to be used in Park Region 2.
There you go. So that's Bill on his hand cycle. Not smiling at that point.
Well, we're not always happy when we're exercising or being in the outdoors.
His nickname is Smilin' Bill, but he was definitely not smiling at that point. Hi, honey, if you're watching.
So we had a question from Bradley Reed asking, how are the parks chosen for the beer series, and is the goal to do all the parks and forests in the state? And with New Trails, the goal is to do all of the state parks. We're looking at discussing the state forest, because those are also very important and near and dear to us. And we know a little bit in advance which ones they're choosing, and we're having conversations in regards to any special events, any special projects that are happening, and those will prioritize in that manner. So, for example, if a park is experiencing a significant anniversary, or we're planning to do a big project there. So, as I mentioned, the current one is Cherry Springs State Park. I'm going to see if I can bring the picture of that one up. It's kind of on its side and crooked, but you'll see all the cans are co-branded with New Trails and Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation, with a little message about the park being featured and about being a good steward in the outdoors. One of the challenges that we've had over the past few years is there's so many more people utilizing our state parks and state forests that anytime you bring large numbers of anytime you bring large numbers of people together, sometimes trash tends to accumulate. So we're really trying to educate people on the leave no trace principles, and on when you visit a state park or a state forest, applying the idea of taking only pictures, leaving only footprints. So taking all your trash away with you, making sure when you leave that you leave it as you find it. So Bradley, we know the next one that's coming out. I don't know that we're privileged to tell that, but we're hoping to do several every year. And if you have a Pennsylvania State Parks and State Forest passport, we're also creating stamps. Actually, New Trails creates a small stamp. After you've had the beer, you can send us a self-addressed stamped envelope, and it's a little stamp for your passport for that particular beer. And while we're talking about beer, I will share my screen one more time, because I also want to talk about the beer that we premiered last night. And this supports the work of the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation, which does support our state forest as well. And that is Let's Enjoy Together. And as I mentioned, this was in partnership with the new public land store in Cranberry Township and Stick City Brewing, which is out of Morris, Pennsylvania. And Stick City is what the only 1% for the planet craft brewery in the state of Pennsylvania. And they have been a supporter of the Pennsylvania Parks and Forest Foundation and avid volunteers in our parks for several years. So we thank Public Lands and Stick City for creating this beer, and we had a fun event last night. So if you find yourself in Mars, that's really the only place that you can get it at, is at the brewery. Pop on in, say hi to our friends there, and pick yourself up a 4-pack.
Marci, what is 1% for the planet?
1% for the planet is B Corporation. So businesses can join with the commitment of giving 1% of their proceeds, their profits, back to environmental organizations that are registered as part of 1% for the planet. So PPFF is also a 1% for the planet member. We have received support from Stick City Brewing, from Purple Lizard Maps, which you may be familiar with. And Pam, I'm sorry, I can't remember the company that makes the reusable bags out of California.
True Liberty Bags, I think. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So it's a great way when you're looking at businesses and making business decisions, purchasing decisions, 1% for the planet businesses are giving back to conservation efforts across Pennsylvania, across the nation, and around the world. So it's a way to make your purchasing dollars support your values.
That's terrific. Yeah, so thanks to those donors, and thanks to Stick City for letting us watch the canning process yesterday. That was absolutely fascinating. I was, the automation of things is really great. But I don't know if you saw Marci's picture there. The labels are hand applied. So there was all this great, putting the beer in the cans and the cans rolling down the thing, and then they wind up with somebody at the end putting the label on the hands. So that's
yes, and we're very appreciative.
Comes into it too.
Yes. We're very appreciative of both New Trails and Stick City, and their commitment to the outdoors. We're very thankful
I seem to recall
for those partnerships.
You came across a study that craft brew drinkers are very aligned with the outdoors. So it was a market that we were thinking we needed to tap into. And along came New Trail and Stick City it was very cosmic.
Yes. It is. There was a study done probably 6 years ago that showed there is a correlation between people who drink craft brews and a conservation value. So that was all. It was all fun, all good. And but we do have to say, as a reminder, that you're not to have alcohol in state parks, and that if you are consuming alcohol, please do it wisely and don't drink and drive, because we love you all and we would hate to see that something would happen to you.
Here.
So, any other questions? Would ask you to post them. So before we bring Steve on here in a few minutes. So, I do want to remind folks too, the Friday after Thanksgiving is Opt Outside. That's an initiative of REI. You can use the hashtag opt outside if you're on social media to post pictures of your time spent in the outdoors. And what happens is REI closes their stores. They give all of their staff a break on Black Friday rather than focusing on consumerism. It's really an initiative to encourage people to spend the day in the outdoors. And we know that spending time in the outdoors is good for human physical, mental, and emotional health. And that's the video we're going to be showing later today. And we hope that you join us because there's a lot of scientific evidence and medical evidence that, why we've been saying this for years, the science is behind it, that when you spend time outdoors, your stress level's lower, you tend to be more active, and that you're doing really good things for your body and for your mind. So please, consider, spending some time outdoors every day. If you have the opportunity to spend time on the outdoors on Black Friday, follow the Opt Outside idea and just be out there. The stores will be waiting
Better
for you
idea.
later.
That's right. It's a better idea than trying to fight all those crowds. Harking back to the Cherry Springs dark sky and the milk stout reminded me. I'm curious whether anybody saw the total lunar eclipse last night. We were fogged out here in Cranberry Township, so we didn't get to see it. But I know there had to have been clear skies somewhere out there over Pennsylvania, and somebody got up in the morning and checked it out. It was the longest lunar eclipse in 600 years. So
Yeah, so we're going to miss the next one.
I don't know if we're going to be around for the next one, but I'd be curious to know if anybody got up to see it.
Well, my husband sent me a text, said he saw it.
Oh, neat.
So in central Pennsylvania, the skies must have been good. And I've seen some pretty interesting photographs on Twitter this morning of the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have a good photograph, if you did see it and you have a good photograph, please, shoot us an email and share it, and we'll put it in next week's Take 5, which is our weekly e-blast telling you what's happening in your state parks and state forests.
Well, I will put in a disclaimer.
Yeah,
we won't
not
put
next
it in
week.
next week's Take 5. In December, believe it or not.
Yeah, where did the year go?
I don't know.
Where did the year
I
go?
don't know. We could spend the next half hour just talking about that.
We could.
Is that a sign we're getting old, Marci? The time just flies by, or is it really going faster?
It is going fast.
Okay.
Lee said that Black Shannon State Park had a viewing party and got some nice photos and put it on their Facebook page. Thank you, Lee. We will definitely check that out.
I'm
so disappointed that we had no ability to see it.
I'm going to just hop over to Facebook and see if I can find a shot or two to share, see how it works. You keep talking, Marci.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, we woke up, and we're like, okay, we're going to see it because we're staying in a hotel room. And then, once you're awake, you hear things. And it sounded like the person above us was doing aerobics at 1:30 in the morning with little wooden clogs on. So it was, if we look tired, we might be, because there was somebody tap dancing.
I think that might have been the person who just chased me down out of the stairwell there for a minute ago.
Did they look rested?
He had kind of a heavy foot, as they say.
Recognize you.
Walk for me. Yeah, darn, I can't make this big enough to share it properly. But yeah, if you're on Facebook, I'd say, like Lee says, go over to the Black Shannon State Park page, and they do have a couple of pretty pictures there.
Yeah, you'll have other opportunities, because it's not the Perseids in December. They're August, but there is meteor showers in December that should be coming up, so that'll give some other sky viewing opportunities. Cherry Springs is a great place, but we have a lot of dark areas in Pennsylvania, in our state parks and in our state forests, and what a difference if you live in an area that has a lot of light or light pollution to get to a dark area where the skies are black, and to look up. It's one of my favorite things about camping and those middle of the night, bathroom runs is looking up at the sky and being wowed by the volume of stars and the constellations and just the beauty that we miss, because I live in central Pennsylvania near Harrisburg, and all the light pollution, you don't get to see those kind of stars.
We get pretty dark skies down in Confluence when it's clear, and of course we get a lot of fog down there. But when we have a clear night, we can see the Milky Way from our driveway, and that's pretty special.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous.
And I'm a little biased, but I think one of our Critics' Choice winners in the photo contest this year is another beautiful dark sky photo. I don't remember what park it's from, though. It's not Cherry Springs.
No.
If you haven't voted in our photo contest yet, it's open through this weekend.
I believe so.
Voting is open, so another thing to check out on the Facebook page if you go over there. Pick your favorite, and one People's Choice winner in each category will win a prize, and also the runner-up does. So get your votes in.
And then we'll have them available. All the photographs will be published in our February newsletter. So some great photographers, and we really enjoy people's interpretation of the themes every year. So we're getting close to 10:30. So I think without any further ado, if Steve, I can see you. If you're ready, give me a
Nod your
nod,
head.
and he's there. Okay, he's been in the studio. We've had him hidden, but we're very happy to have Steve Wacker join us today. Steve is the district forester with the William Penn Forest District, and if you're not familiar with the William Penn Forest District, it's roughly east of the Susquehanna River and south of the Lehigh Valley. So he's here today to talk to us about the spotted lanternfly. As I mentioned earlier, many of you may be seeing it or you're on the lookout for it because it's been moving its way across Pennsylvania and even outside of Pennsylvania. So, Steve, thank you. And thank you for being here. And thank
Good
you for being
morning.
so patient in the background.
No, I'm just listening and watching, like lots of other people. So thank you for having me, and good morning. So should I share my screen now?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
And we have somebody watching us from Midtown Harrisburg. So she may be the viewer may be seeing the spotted lanternfly because it was definitely in the Harrisburg area. And I hope to be in Midtown tonight for Third in the Berg. So great.
Yes, they're
Steve.
definitely in Harrisburg. That's for sure. Yeah, they've been there for a couple of years, but it depends on where you're at. They're very spotty. That's one of the things about the spotted lanternfly. Some places are really bad and might be really bad for 1 year, and then they move on, and populations are up and down and all over the place. So that's just one of the characteristics about this bug.
Well, and I understand that it's not in Berks County so much anymore, which was the hotspot a few years ago.
That's right. Yep.
Any understanding why it's not there?
Well, I don't think we know for sure. There's a lot of theories about it, but I don't think we really know. You know, it's typical of a lot of invasive, especially insects. They have a wave where they're really, really bad, and then they sort of taper off as some of the predators catch up to them. One of the other aspects is quite a lot of the Atlantis in that immediate area where they were first found either died or were removed. And so that was another reason that they've sort of tapered off. So.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure you're going to tell us all about it, and you're also going to tell people what Atlantis is.
Yep, yeah, we'll try to cover that too. Yep.
Great. Without further ado.
Well, yeah, well, good morning, and thanks for allowing me to share a little information about this new pest. And I'm only going to be able to cover the basics, and I'm not the the leading expert on this by any means. The information that I've obtained is mostly from the Department of Agriculture or our own DCNR Division of Forest Health, and also Penn State. They've been doing a lot of the research on this and trying to get information out about this new pest. I'm going to cover basically three parts here this morning. One is, what is the spotted lanternfly? Then what does it do? And then what are some things that we can do about it? So this is an adult spotted lanternfly. It is a non-native insect pest. It's in the family of insects known as the plant hoppers or leaf hoppers. We have many native leaf hoppers in Pennsylvania. Most of them are about 1/4 of an inch long, but the spotted lanternfly is really a giant among leaf hoppers. It's 1 inch long and 1/2 inch wide as an adult. Very characteristic, very easy to recognize by looking at them. They have very unique coloration, so they have this sort of gray color with black dots as an adult and very large. One of the other key identification factors is as they jump or fly and they lift their wings, you can see the hind wing is red. So you get this flash of red as they fly away. And so that's very characteristic. There really isn't any other bug that looks like them. If you see you might mistake it at first for a moth because it is so large. But if you get a good look at it, they're easy to identify. Like other plant hoppers, they feed through a mouth that's more like a straw. So they're called piercing and sucking. So the tip of their proboscis, their mouth part, is able to chew a hole right through the bark, even of a tree. So they can land on the side of a tree and they chew a tiny little hole, and they stick their straw-like mouth in that hole and start sucking on the sap. That's the way they feed. Of course, they can feed on soft tissue, but one of the things that's unique about these insects is the way that they are able to penetrate bark. Now, they can't penetrate very thick bark, say on an oak tree or a large mature tree very easily. They would feed on the twigs very readily, and even on the trunk of relatively thin bark trees. So, for example, Marci, you mentioned the aspen, and they're also known to feed on uh, birch trees, and they have a lot of their favorite trees have relatively thin bark. So that's one of the things about these insects is the way they suck the sap out and feed on.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, Steve, I was thinking that's why they loved my my aspen. It's such a thin bark tree.
Yeah, and almost any tree they can feed on the twigs where the bark is already thin, but yeah, they have their preferences. They'll feed on up to 70 different plants, and not just trees. Although trees and vines are among their favorites, they can feed on things in your garden, flowers, fruit. They'll feed directly on the fruit sometimes. But their main thing is on trees and vines, and their favorites are the tree of heaven. We'll talk about a little bit more how to identify that in a minute. But things like grapevines, they are a major pest on vineyards. They also will feed on walnut and silver maple. Among the maples, the silver maple is their favorite, pretty clearly, pretty distinctly. For some reason, they don't feed on Norway maples and they don't feed as much on sugar maple, but they love silver maple. They have one generation per year. So right now they're in the egg stage. Over winter as an egg, um, the adults pretty much all die off with a good hard freeze. So they were pretty active all through October this year and into November. And then we had that real hard freeze here about a week or so ago. And that pretty much put a stop to the adults. But before that, they had a chance to lay their eggs. So they lay eggs and those eggs overwinter. Then they hatch as nymphs in the spring, usually in May around here. And then they have 4 molts as a nymph and then become adults late summer, as early as July, usually like late July. And then the rest of the year we see them as adults. The eggs, once you kind of tune your eye into them, they're pretty well camouflaged, but you can recognize the eggs. They're usually covered with kind of this smooth substance that makes it look like somebody stuck chewing gum in the bark of the tree, or maybe some body putty. It's kind of that color. Uh, they'll lay their eggs pretty much anywhere, on the tree, on rocks, on cars, on playground equipment, side of your house, anything. And they aren't always covered with that protective coating. Sometimes they're without a covering, like this slide shows them on the left. The females will lay 30 to 50 eggs, and they might lay 2 different batches. Sometimes they cover them, sometimes they're partly covered. And then on this slide, on the right-hand side, is an uncovered egg mass that is also an old egg mass that the nymphs have already hatched. So you can see little holes there. Kind of gives it a chain-like appearance to that egg mass. It's a series of eggs. So right now, you might be able to find these egg masses out on your property, and we'll talk more about one of the things to do. But learning to recognize these egg masses can be really helpful in trying to control the population for next year. This is what the nymphs look like. They go through 4 stages. Stage 1, 2, and 3 as a nymph look pretty much alike, just a little bit bigger as they grow. This little black bug with white dots. They do not fly in the nymph stage, but they are very much able to crawl and hop. So they can get around pretty well in this stage. They just can't fly, but they have ways of getting around to find the plants that they like. And this is a stage when they're most likely to maybe feed on your garden plants and tender plants that might be around your landscape. They'll also feed on trees at this stage as well. Their 4th stage as a nymph, they turn red, black with white dots. So it's a very unique looking bug. There really isn't anything else looks like that, especially not around here. So that's the fourth instar nymph. And again, they pretty much just spend their days looking for something to feed on. They'll feed for a while, and then apparently they get full and they have to take a rest. And sometimes they will fall to the ground, or they'll find a place to rest. And then they get hungry again, and they'll climb up and find another spot to feed. So during the day, they will feed a number of different spots, sometimes all on the same plant, sometimes they'll move from plant to plant, but they have a ways of getting around to find their favorites. So here on the left is a young ailanthus stem covered with nymphs. These are probably third instar nymphs lining up there on the side of that ailanthus stem. And some of them are feeding and some of them are resting at this point. In the middle is a basil plant. So there's someone's garden plant that is suffering pretty severely from the nymphs that are punching holes in that plant and sucking the sap out of it. Because of the way they move around, even if you kill all of the nymphs on your plant, more might move in tomorrow. So they're constantly on the move, and if you have a plant that they like, you're probably going to have waves of these bugs moving in throughout the summer. On the right-hand side are adults. And these adults, again, some are resting, some are feeding on a relatively thin bark tree. This is a sycamore in the park. They can kill plants. So you can see from the basil there, they're able to kill tender garden plants. They can kill grapevines pretty easily. And on ailanthus trees with repeated feeding over a couple of years, very, very heavy feeding, even the ailanthus trees can die. And so that's in a way that's good news, because the ailanthus is a invasive weed. But young newly planted trees are especially vulnerable. Maybe fruit trees, maybe trees that are planted in your yard or riparian areas, and they can kill young trees that are weakened, especially if they're being attacked year after year. One of the other things about this plant, or this insect, this pest, is that they secrete a honeydew. So that honeydew is their excrement, high in sugar, and if you have a really bad infestation of these pests in the treetops, it'll be like rain, a little fine mist of rain that comes down. It's basically sugar water, and it coats everything and quickly gets mold covered and mildewed, and it's a really horrible mess. Very sticky. If it's on your deck or on your patio furniture or even on your car, it's really hard to get off. And that's one of the most annoying things about this pest. So what are some things we can do about it? One of the things right now is to recognize those egg masses that are out there. Again, they can be on anything. They might be on tree bark. They might be on telephone poles. They might be on your lawn furniture. This on the right, I think, is the underside of a picnic table. So you can see the egg masses that are there. So you can, when you want to go out and see what you can do about the spotted lanternfly, you can scrape those egg masses off. There, the picture of the illustration on the left shows a person using a little twig, but something like a credit card actually works really well to scrape those egg masses off. And you can scrape them into a container with some 50% isopropyl alcohol. Works really good to kill those eggs. And all the ones that you can reach. That's about 50 nymphs and adults that you're not going to see next year. So that can be a real helpful thing to do around your property. Of course, they move. It's doesn't going to mean that you can really control the population, but it is something that can be a help. Another thing you can do with the egg masses that you might not be able to reach is to spray them or paint them with some type of oil, a horticultural oil or a dormant oil that you might use on your fruit trees. You can spray that on the egg masses or paint it on the egg masses, and that will kill most of the eggs, maybe not 100%. And if you don't have any dormant oil around, you can use soybean oil. That's been demonstrated to work very well. Dilute the soybean oil by 50% with water. Of course, you have to keep that agitated, but that's been proven to be very effective at killing the egg mass. Another thing you can do, because the ailanthus tree or tree of heaven is such a key or favorite host plant for this insect. If you eliminate the tree of heaven from your property, you might reduce the attractiveness um, to this pest, this insect. So this is how to identify the tree of heaven. On the left is the seeds. Now, most of the seeds, you might be able to find seed clusters. They're going to be dried out and brown this time of year, light brown. But you might see that on the female trees. There are female and male trees of the tree of heaven. Then there's a picture here of the leaf and the bark. And then from a distance, this is a female tree that's loaded with flowers turning into seeds there on the right-hand side. So the tree of heaven is a very nasty, pesty tree. It's very much found along highways or railroad lines and industrial areas. It's not a very desirable tree for landscapes or residential areas, but they do pop up sometimes, and it'd be good to get rid of as many of these as you can. At one point in time, we thought that perhaps it might be even required for the life cycle of the spotted lanternfly, but that's been proven to be false. But the spotted lanternfly really like the tree of heaven and they thrive on it. It really has been demonstrated that when they feed on the tree of heaven, they're more robust, they grow faster, they produce more eggs. So eliminating the tree of heaven can help to slow down the population growth of the spotted lanternfly. The tree of heaven can easily be confused with the sumac. So this is a sumac. It's a native plant, very beneficial for wildlife. So don't kill sumac. Make sure you identify and tell the difference between the sumac and the tree of heaven. Some other things that we might be able to do. They are relatively easy to kill with insecticides, but if you don't want to use insecticides, and you have a tree that in your yard that is a favorite of the spotted lanternfly, you can use sticky bands. These are commercially produced bands just for such a purpose, and you put them around the stem of your tree. And because of that way that they drop off the tree and then they climb back up again repeatedly throughout the day, you can kill lots and lots. It works especially well for when they're in that nymphal stage. It also works for the adults, but the nymph stage is when you can really have the best impact. And if you have a tree that you notice is one of their favorites, then sticky band can be real effective. And I'd suggest that you just put it up for a short period of time when the nymphs are the most active, because you do get some beneficial insects that will get stuck and killed by these sticky bands, and even birds have been found to get stuck in these sticky bands. So they have some drawbacks, but they can be an effective way to trap and kill the spotted lanternfly. And perhaps you've seen or heard about traps. There's all kinds of different ingenious traps that people have invented and constructed. You can construct your own. I think there are some commercial traps that are also available. Once again, this takes advantage of that habit that the spotted lanternfly have, both in the nymph stage and the adult stage, to climb up the stem of anything. I mean, you can use these traps on a telephone pole and catch them, because they just jump on the object, they climb up, and they're searching for feeding sites, and you can catch them in these traps. It climbs up in that sort of funnel-shaped netting and eventually into the plastic bag. These traps, the way they're designed, they're very good at catching the spotted lanternfly and less good at catching other bugs that are smart enough to find their way out. But the spotted lanternflies tend to get stuck in these. So that's another tool you can use to try to reduce them and reduce the damage that they cause. One of the most important things that we can do is to pay attention when you're traveling, when you're moving anything. At this stage, at this time of the year, they're in the egg stage. So if you're moving something that might have eggs attached, try to scrape them off before you move it. You might be moving, I don't know, something up to your hunting camp in northern Pennsylvania and taking some stuff along up there. Make sure you're not moving the eggs at this time of year. During the summertime, the adults especially are very good hitchhikers, and they'll climb on anything like trains and cars and trailers. And it's really important you don't have to worry about it if you're just going around the block to the grocery store or something like that. But if you're traveling outside of the infested area, look over your vehicle, spend a couple minutes and look for potential spotted lanternfly that might be hanging on. It's amazing they can hold on to the side of a car when you're going down the highway at 65 miles an hour. They do hitchhike really, really well. And you have to look around the grill, around the bumpers, and around the tires. That's the wheel wells, around the license plate. Those are the places they like to hide. So one of the very most important things that we need to do is to look at our vehicles before we travel outside of the area where they're already well established. And here's the map of that area. It's now in 34 counties in Pennsylvania. It's also found in, I think, most of Delaware, parts of Maryland, and in New Jersey. And this map shows the counties in Pennsylvania where the spotted lanternfly is now established. I'm sure it's been found in like Center County, for example, but it's not known to be there as an established pest. It's also been found as far west as the state of Indiana. Once again, I don't think it's been known to be established in Indiana, but individual spotted lanternfly have made it that far, probably hitchhiking on cars or trains. So
Is that following a transportation corridor, Steve? I mean, it's interesting how it's just lined up across the lower tier.
It absolutely is following the transportation corridors, yes. And especially trains, for some reason, they seem to hitchhike well on trains.
Okay.
But they hitchhike on cars and lots of other stuff too. It's amazing how they do that, but they'll jump on anything and hang on. So we need to be vigilant, try to slow the spread down. So that's the basics. So what we can do, kill them lots of different ways, even shop vacs. So Marci, I heard your description of how you can suck them up with a shop vac, and you can squish them. There's lots of insecticides. They're relatively easy to kill, lots of different ways. One thing I didn't mention, but that it has been a technique that the Department of Agriculture is using is a trap tree technique with Ailanthus. So what they'll do is they'll find an area with Ailanthus, remove most of the Ailanthus, using herbicides and cutting them out, and leaving a few behind as traps so that the spotted lanternfly will be attracted to those individual Ailanthus trees, and then they inject a systemic insecticide in those remaining Ailanthus trees and kill the spotted lanternfly that way. And that has been a pretty effective way when you have a spot like a industrial area that has a lot of Ailanthus. You can kill a lot of spotted lanternfly by using the trap tree technique. And then don't move spotted lanternfly. Look before you move anything. Look for eggs this time of year, and then especially when the adults are active in late summer, try to make sure you're not giving them a free ride somewhere else in Pennsylvania or to another state. That's my quick overview of the spotted lanternfly. I don't know if we have any questions, but I'll be happy to take some questions if we have time.
I have a couple of questions. I do want to put a pitch in for many of our friends groups sell firewood at the campgrounds, and part of the reason they do this is to reduce the transportation of invasive pests and diseases such as the spotted lanternfly. So when you're purchasing your firewood from a friends group, not only is it reducing transportation of firewood, but it's also supporting projects in that particular park. So that's one of the things that as campers, that you can do to protect our ecosystems is to not transport your firewood.
Yep.
One of my questions, Steve, is you mentioned that the long cold probably knocked them out currently. I know for some invasive insects, such as the hemlock woolly adelgid, if we have like a really long cold winter, it can set it back. Do we know enough about the spotted lanternfly that if we have a really long cold winter, that's one of the things that we could be celebrating, is the fact that even though we're cold, maybe the spotted lanternfly population is going to be reduced significantly. Do we know enough about it yet?
I do not know about it. I have not heard that we're really hoping for that. I think there will be a limit as to how far north they will spread, but I don't think we really know that yet. We do know that they are well established in northern parts of China, South Korea, and Japan. And I'm not sure how far north in the Korean Peninsula they've moved, or how far north in Japan, but they're mostly a Southeast Asian insect, so I think they do have some kind of a limit to their cold, but I don't think we know what that is yet.
Okay. Another question that I had as you were talking is, you mentioned the honeydew, and it's my understanding that not only is the honeydew unpleasant, is that it can develop a mold on it.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that and what the implications of that are?
Well, I think there's actually a couple different species of mold, but it's normally a black mold that develops really quickly, and that, as it coats, let's say, other plants, ground plants that are on the ground, ground cover plants, young seedlings, it will actually basically smother. It blocks out the sunlight to those leaves, and so it would kill the plants. So it does kill, basically wipes out what's on the ground when there's really heavy infestation of the spotted lanternfly, because of the mold that grows on the honeydew. So it's not the honeydew itself that's really harmful, but the mold that grows on it. And I don't think the mold is like really toxic to the plants, but it just blankets it blocks out the sunlight. And
Right.
it, of course, mold, lots of people are allergic to molds, and there are a couple different species of molds that will grow basically on any kind of sugary substance. So that's what we're seeing.
Okay. Thank you. Um, so far, no questions in the chat box. I do have a few others if nobody else has any. I have to look at my notes though. I was writing them down as you were talking. Um,
I've relocated.
I see that. I see you, like, you're lingering outside of somebody's door. Kind of creepy.
Sorry.
um,
I was losing our internet connection, so that's not good.
oh no! Oh no!
And while you're looking at your notes, Marci, I just wanted to announce that our winner of our coffee press is Megan Cronin. So thank you, Megan, for your donation. And
so I would imagine if you're adverse to insecticides, pesticides, that when they're in the nymph and the end star, hand picking is really the only way to remove them from. I mean, my basil didn't do well this year. Now I'm thinking maybe I should have looked at it better, because we had so many adult spotted lanternflies, so is really hand picking the way to go, or for when they're in that stage of their life cycle?
Well, I'm guessing it's going to be a lot like I handpick Japanese beetles off my roses, and that's all summer. I try and do it twice a day, and it seems like they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And I think that's the way it would be for the spotted lanternfly. If they have a favorite food, you can pick them, and then tomorrow there'll be a whole new batch that are there to need to be picked off. So it can be a very frustrating exercise to try to pick, especially the nymphs. They're going to be pretty hard to catch. They jump and run pretty quickly, so they're not that easy to hand pick. But you can do that. That certainly is one technique. I would recommend that maybe something like a sticky trap or some other type of trap might be better than hand picking.
And a sticky trap, can people get that like any hardware store? Is that something that's
I think in the areas where the spotted lanternfly is well established, I think a lot of the hardware stores are going to be stocking up on those and having those available, or garden centers, that type of thing. Yeah, they should be
yeah.
available.
And I think it's really important, the map that you showed, and I think that's something that maybe we want to put on our PPFF website, is the fact that if you are traveling in the area, during the different life cycles of the spotted lanternfly, it is really important to check your gear. Whether it be your backpacking gear if you're out, for multiple days, or your camper or your car, because you don't want to be taking it into new areas. Because as you said, Steve, it's not just about the Atlantis, it's about a lot of different tree species, as well as cash crops, orchard crops, and it could be very decimating to not just our forested ecosystems, but to agriculture in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And that's one of our key industries in the state.
That's right, and that's how this pest got here. It was on we think it was on some packing shipping material that came from Asia, and that's how it got here. And we don't want to add to that problem. The same thing is true for like gypsy moth. You don't want to move gypsy moth eggs or larvae around, or egg laying females. You want to check your equipment, check your camper, and make sure that you're not giving any of these nasties a free ride.
Yes. And to clarify, if you're scraping egg masses, as you just mentioned, you want to scrape them into something. It doesn't do any good just to scrape them, because if they land on the ground, they could still be viable egg masses.
That's right. Now, on the ground, they're more likely to get picked up by like ants or something else like that. But yeah, they can survive on the ground and hatch. So you definitely want to catch them and put them in something that'll kill those eggs, like alcohol.
Okay, great. Pam, do you have any questions for Steve?
I don't. I hope I did the right thing by running across the street and going right into the car wash.
Yeah, I mean, this is really one of those cases where the actions that we take as individuals can make a huge difference to reducing the spread of this insect pest and to protecting our natural assets.
And I think there is some hope. If it's in your neighborhood and all your neighbors are kind of working together, you can overall reduce the impact. You're not going to eliminate them completely, but you can reduce the impact. Because they do move around, they keep moving, and if everybody does a little bit, that can help a lot to reduce the impact in a like a neighborhood area.
It's good teamwork. This will be teamwork.
Yeah. There you go.
And I have to say, when you showed the how it ate with a close up of its feeding parts, it really did look like something you'd find in a horror movie. They're pretty from afar, but that viewpoint, it was like, wow, that's kind of scary.
Yeah, that particular angle, that would make a good 1950s B movie. Yeah.
Yes, it would. Definitely.
I smell a fundraiser.
Well, thank you, Steve. That was very informative. And as I mentioned, this will stay on our YouTube and Facebook channel. I think it's really important for Pennsylvanians to know how they can combat this insect. And this being informed is the first step. And this was a very informative presentation. So
thank you very much. I'll just add that there is a lot of information out there, like how to build a trap and different insecticides that might be effective in your situation. So look for more information on the Department of Agriculture website and on the Penn State website for more information about how to deal with the spotted lanternfly.
Terrific.
A related question, but not exactly spotted lanternfly, is if somebody has a forested ecosystem and they have questions, I know that the Bureau of Forestry has service foresters. Can you just talk for a minute about what a service forester is and how somebody could contact a service forester?
Okay, yeah. So the service foresters are available to help people to manage their trees in their forests. Our Pennsylvania enabling law that created the Bureau of Forestry said that our job is to promote trees and forests. And one of the ways we do that is providing professionals to go out and talk to people. We are happy to talk to people on the phone or come out and look at your property and give you some advice about what you might be able to do. So there's lots of different programs that are available to provide a little bit of financial help as well when there's some practices like getting rid of Atlantis trees perhaps, or developing a management plan for your property. And so the service forester is a good first step to find out what kinds of programs might be available to help you out and just give you information.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't think people realize that the service foresters exist. So I thought it was a great opportunity to remind people that service is available.
Yeah, contact your local district office and they'll put you in touch with the service forester for your county.
Yeah. And if you're not aware, there are 20 districts of in the Bureau of Forestry, and you can find the information on the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources website.
Yep.
So, excellent.
Okay. Thank you, Marci.
Yep.
Pam.
Yep. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
It was very
Thanks, Steve.
informative. Very appreciative.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for your support through the ExtraGive, and congratulations. I believe you said it was Megan?
Megan, yep.
Who won the AeroPress. I think you'll find that to be a great way to make your cup of coffee.
We'll get it out to you as soon as we can. And have a good day.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.